Hi, everyone, and welcome to the session. I hope all of you are doing well. So we have an interesting session that is going to happen now. So the session is Ask Us Anything on CAT 23, and we are going to focus on the DILR section today. So yesterday we had a session wherein we focused on the VARC. I hope you guys got a chance to have a look at it. In case you haven't, you can always watch it on the YouTube channel that we have. So today we are going to focus on DILR section, and with me we have two legends, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible in this session. Uh, so let me start with Suneet. So Suneet is a 5-time CAT 100 percentiler. I don't think he needs an introduction as such. A lot of people in the CAT fraternity already know him. So he's going to be with us, and he has had some perfect scores when it comes to DLR. And when I say perfect score, I'm not talking about 100 percentile on the section. I'm talking about solving all the questions that appeared in that particular paper, getting all those correct as well, right? So even last year, he had all 20 questions correct that appeared in the DILR section. So hi, Suneet, welcome to the session.
Thank you, Prasad, for the generous introduction.
And we also have Shivam. So Shivam is a senior faculty at IMS, and he has been teaching CAT aspirants for more than 15 years. He's somebody who has scored a 99.99 on the quant section in CAT, and he has also scored a 100 percentile in the QA section on the ZAT. So you have two best faculty members out there. And any question that you have with respect to DLR, we are going to try and answer that question in today's session. So thanks again for joining, and let's get started, right? So the first thing that I want to do when we're going to start discussing the DILR bit, I just want to understand from Suneet and from Shivam, right? So when you go for the test, right, as an aspirant, when you were a student or as a mentor, what are the things that are going on in your mind, right? Because DLR is one section where a lot of surprises can come up, right? So they can twist things in multiple ways. Suddenly they'll ask a chess puzzle, suddenly they'll ask something else. So what is going on in your mind when you're just about to start the DLR section?
Right. So I'll go first. I mean, in fact, before starting the DLR section, even on the way to the test these days, the one thing is कितने सवाल आए, कितने set आए, right? That is the most asked question these days, right? And irrespective of whether you want to know it or not, you definitely get to understand if you're in the second or the third slot, right? So I think that is something which is inevitable. वो पता चल ही जाता है, and it's not even bad to know it, right? Because obviously you can hence form certain strategies, certain I wouldn't say very tight strategies, but you can work around things in your head. This is how you will go through the exam, right? And once the VRC section ends and the DLR is about to start, I think for me, I just try to take a deep breath. That's it. You don't have time during the CAT, so I just take a deep breath, take around 10 odd seconds, then in a very speedy manner, just start browsing through the 4 sets, 4 or 5 depending, obviously, right? Browsing through the sets and trying to figure out which one should I solve first.
Okay, yeah, that's good to know. What about you, Shiva?
One thing that keeps ringing on my mind when I appear for CAT, especially for DILR section, is expect the unexpected, because this is what the CAT keeps throwing at you in terms of DILR section. So sometimes you have 8 puzzles with 4 questions in each. Sometimes you have 4 sets, sometimes you have 5 sets. So they've worked with a lot of permutation combination in terms of number of sets they're asking and number of questions that are asking in different sets. So I just to tell myself that be prepared for some another surprise. That's all.
I think 2 good pieces of advice. One is keep your calm, take a 10-second pause, and the other is ready to face whatever comes your way, right? So with that, I think let's get started. That kind of sets the tone for what we are going to discuss. So we had floated a form through which a lot of you had submitted your questions with respect to DLR. What we have done is we have picked the frequently asked questions from that, and we are monitoring the YouTube chat. So whatever queries you have, you can always put it in the chat window, and we'll discuss those questions as well. So for now, we'll start with the first question that we had got, which was a very frequently asked question. Please give a 3-month plan to boost LRDS score, right? So where to practice from? So again, all the students who are IMS students already know the resources that have been given to you. So you have the pre-class work that you need to do in the form of watching concept videos. Then you have the class exercise that is given to you. You have practice exercises that you can solve, and post that you have the benchmarking test, right? So those are the resources that have been given to you. In terms of plan, any suggestions from Suneet and Shivam? What can be done? How do you go about structuring your preparation for the LRDI section?
Sure. So I think it is very important to obviously keep your preparation very practice oriented, right? Especially in a section like LRDI, where there is no defined course as such. Obviously, there are certain types of sets which keep on repeating in the examination, but obviously there's it could be anything on which a logical paragraph might be created, right? So practice is definitely something which is going to help you. I generally tend to suggest somewhere in the range of 400 to 500 sets of practice, right? So you can break it down into 4 sets a day, or 2 sets a day, or 6 sets a day, depending on where you stand right now, right? If you're just starting your preparation, maybe you'd want to do 4 to 6 sets a day. But if you've already been preparing, maybe you do less sets of practice, maybe more of mocks, right? So that is how you should be pacing your preparation. The only thing I will say around practice is, I see a lot of people worrying about finishing a set, in a set amount of time, right? I think while you're practicing or while you're preparing, the more important thing to do is to get everything right, right? So, I as a student also used to take it on my ego. If I picked a set, I had to solve all the questions in it, right? Obviously, in the exam, you keep that aside. But while you're preparing, while you're practicing, try to get everything right. Only then will you be able to actually get sharper and improve on your skills in terms of cracking these sets.
Right. What about you, Shivam? What do you suggest to the students?
Okay, as far as 3 months plan go, in order to prepare for LRDI, you may be a student who is preparing for CAT who can fall in one of these 2 categories. One, you are full-time devoted to CAT. So in that case, you can afford to spend around 6-7 hours to prepare for CAT. Whereas you are the other type of student who is working student, or who is a college goer who has to simultaneously prepare for college as well. So that kind of student might not be able to devote so much time in terms of practicing certain number of hours. So for them, the reduced time has to be somewhere around 3 to 4 hours per day put together all the section. So if you are a student of type 1, I would say you should be practicing at least to 4 to 5 sets every day, because you have time on your hand. Minimum, even if you are not able to spend a lot of time, you are working student or if you are college goer, you still need to practice 2 to 3 sets on a regular basis just to stay in touch with the subject. And more importantly, you should be practicing them in a time bound manner, especially if you are practicing since a long time. Okay, if you have started afresh, let's say in recent 1 month or so, then you can take your time without taking a lot of pressure of time spent on a test or on a set. You can take your time and solve the set, because building the content will be more important in the initial phase. So that is how it should go.
Yeah. We have an interesting question in the chat, in the YouTube chat. So let's take that. So there's a question for Suneet. So there's a comment from the analyst. That's how he goes. Suneet, how to reach at your level? Can you tell us the prep journey from when you were an aspirant to a DILR legend?
Got it. Yeah. So thank you for the question, the analyst. And I mean, the answer is in a way very simple and very difficult as well at the same time, right? Depends on how you want to see it. But at some point of time, maybe I was at each of your levels, right? Wherever you stand, right? So you always have to start, right? So you have to take that first step and get going in terms of your practice. Keep your chin up. Whatever mistakes you make, learn from them, and just keep bettering yourself, right? That is what I used to do with myself, right? So when I started preparing for the CAT, luckily with my past background, where I used to be exposed to a lot of aptitude tests during my childhood as well, because I used to participate in a lot of talent search examinations and a lot of Olympiads, right? I was already at a decent level, right? So maybe when I started preparing for those Olympiads, yes, that is when my perseverance came into the picture. But that is what is required. I think currently all of you, the one thing which, is going to matter a lot in your preparation over the next few months is your perseverance. You'll have to believe in yourself and you'll have to keep going at it, right? And that is what is going to help you, right? And automatically, I'm pretty sure all your analytical skills and everything is going to, come in the right, in the right manner and at the right time as well, right? So just keep going is what I would say, and keep practicing hard. You'll have good days, you'll have bad days. But yes, hopefully, we will be able to crack the exam.
Yeah, thanks, Sunit, for that one. Let's move to the next question. So, Shivam, there's a question that we got in the chat also from the YouTube chat. Question from Anupam Das. The same question is also there on screen. So, in some SimCats, I'm able to complete 2 sets, but in some, I'm not able to complete even 1 set. So, what should the strategy be, right? So, is my strategy wrong or my practice is wrong? What do I need to do? Should I be solving more sets? So, what's your take on this?
Okay, so one thing I'm suspecting here is that you might be solving your paper or attempting the paper in sequence. So if there are easy and moderate sets in the beginning of the paper, in those tests you are able to solve 2 sets. And if it is the other way around, let's say if the easier questions are a little behind, or let's say the 3rd or the 4th or the 5th set, in that case you might not be able to attempt 2 sets in a paper. So one thing from here on that you should be doing is stop attempting your paper in sequence, right? Like first set first, second set second, and so on. But rather you can spend first 5 minutes when you are entering the DILR section. You can spend first 5 minutes on scanning through the sets and try using the ABC approach. You can filter out the sets which looks easier on higher rating, and prioritize the sets accordingly and then attack those sets. What is ABC analysis? I think there is a separate video on the same. You can watch it to understand more in detail.
Yeah, I think the ABC part of it is very, very important, as Shivam mentioned. Few days back, we had done a session called SimCat Suffer. So those of you are IMS students, in case you have not watched it, it's there in the My IMS dashboard. You can watch the recording of the SimCat Suffer that we had done, where we covered the ABC analysis for the individual sections that are there. Sunit, do you want to add anything on this?
So I definitely agree, with what Sean said, but one thing that I will add is, obviously choosing the right set is very important. At the same time, sometimes obviously your choice of set may not, come out as expected, right? So it is also important to understand when to leave the set as well, right? That will come through practice. As you keep practicing mocks, you will definitely reach there, and it's a difficult skill to acquire, mind you, right? So, even the best make mistakes over there, right? So, don't worry, again, as I said, keep your chin up, learn from your mistakes, analyze your tests well, and you'll automatically do better. Another thing, Prasad, if I may take the liberty, is also your preparation pre-test, right? Prasad, when you asked what do you do before you start the LR section, in fact, students should also focus on what they do before starting a test, right? Especially on the day of the CAT, there's going to be these periods of, half an hour, 1 hour, where, before the test, you're just going to be sitting idle, right? It's very important to keep yourself switched on at that point of time, keep yourself in sync with your strategy. Sometimes what happens is we switch ourselves off and then we are behind the test as soon as the test starts, right? And as soon as the DILR section starts, as it is, there's so much chaos around it. And then couple that with the chaos in your head, and automatically all strategies go out of the window, right? So it's very important to also focus on the build up to the test as well, right? For some, it may just be a few hours before the test. For some, it may be a couple of weeks also before the test, right? I feel it's not just those 2 hours, it's the entire 7-8 months or 1.5 years of preparation that you put into it, right? Everything comes out during those 2 hours. But yes, all of it is very important.
Right. I think let's move to the next question now. So, which is again connected to what we have been discussing. And also, I think somebody has asked the same question. This is from Vanshita in the chat window. How to choose the right set? The perennial question. I mean, this is one question which will never go away. How to choose the right set?
Right. So I think, again, we touched base on that with the ABC approach. I think it's a pretty foolproof approach, to be very honest, right? And I would recommend students to see videos around it. I will highlight a few factors which you can, look into a set to figure out if, it is the set that you would want to start initially, right? I think for me, what matters the most is whether it is, from a subject or from a topic, or it's a set which is, something I'm aware of, or I've solved similar things before, right? So whether it's something of my liking, or if, it's a familiar thing, that is one of the bigger factors for me. Apart from that, I, look at how readable the data is, and what format the data is, the conditions given, if they are direct conditions, or if, they are indirect, which basically means that, you'll have to club multiple conditions together to, put in certain data on your paper or on your rough working, right? And then there are conditions where, it's very simple and very direct. So direct obviously helps. Also, the length of the set, the number of conditions, although not that big a factor in front of the others, is still a minor factor I tend to consider before I select my first set to solve.
Okay. Let's move ahead. So Shivam, we can have a look at this question. So how can we manage stress and nerves if you've selected a wrong set, right? So again, linked to the previous question, that if I start the set and I realize that, okay, maybe this is not working out, I spent maybe 15 minutes. So over invested, right? Out of 40 minutes, maybe 15 minutes are already gone. Then the panic starts to kick in. So how do you handle these kind of situations?
Now, if you have spent around 15 to 20 minutes on a set, it is impossible to calm your nerves and manage the stress. So, see, if you are there in the exam to give your best, and if something drastically goes wrong, even the best of the best are going to feel the pressure, and you're no exception there. Better to not reach in the situation where you wasted 15 to 20 minutes on a set without a significant breakthrough. So you should have some sort of stop loss in terms of mind, some threshold as to, normally this works around 5 to 6 minutes on a set. If you're not able to get any significant breakthrough in a set within first 5 to 6 minutes, then you should reconsider your decision. So if there is a judgmental error, you should have that realization by the time you have spent first 5 minutes in the set. Then this is the error. So you should better come out of it. I'm not saying that you should be done with the set in 5 minutes. If you are solving the set, if you are making progress, continue with it. But if you understand that it's a wrong decision, please come out of it within 5 to 6 minutes, and you may be moving to the next set. So rather than taking it on your ego or hanging on, better you can move on. And that is also bringing you one step closer to the easier set that you were searching for.
And so Sunit, for you, what is typically the sweet spot? Now, of course, last time you solved all 20 questions. So you're possibly not going through this situation where you have made a wrong choice, right? But have there been instances where, let's say, you were solving something and then you decided that, no, I'm not going to pursue this. Let me jump to another set. Let me finish that off and maybe come back to this.
Yes, multiple times actually, right? So, I mean, before getting to the test, actually, what is more important again for a student to understand is, as you said, Prasad, the word sweet spot. What is the sweet spot for you, right? For me, I can solve a average CAT set in 10 minutes. For Prasad, you maybe that time may be 15 minutes, right? For Shivam, it may be 12 minutes, right? So for a student, it is very important while you are taking your mocks and while you're analyzing them, need to understand how much time do you generally take to solve a set. On the day of the exam, it can't change by a lot, right? There is you won't get a lot of superpowers on that day, right? The chances is very less that you will be able to solve at a much faster pace, maybe slightly faster, but not definitely much faster, right? So for you to have that self-awareness is very important. I know of students who even take 30 minutes to solve a set, but if they keep their calm and they solve it in 30 minutes, they solve one set. These days, even with one set, you tend to get an 85 plus percentile in the section, right? For them, it might be enough. Or maybe at least they are aware that, okay, this is where I stand right now, right? So very important for you to keep assessing where you stand, and will obviously keep changing as you keep preparing for the exam. Currently, you might take 20 minutes for a set. Maybe 2 months down the line, it might come down to 12 minutes a set, right? So this is something that is going to change from a person to person basis. Now, if you ask me specifically, as I said, Prasad, for me, I always try to solve everything in the exam, right? So I always aim to distribute the time equally amongst the sets hence. So I know if it's a 40-minute test and if there are 4 sets, my sweet spot is 10 minutes. I can't give more than 10 minutes to a set, at least the first one that I'm trying to solve, was that at least according to my perception is an easy set. Sometimes while reading the set, I realize, okay, the parameters, I maybe have misjudged them and maybe I, tend to leave the set there itself. Sometimes I, may realize it a bit later, right? So it keeps happening. And, obviously, there is some element of luck. Obviously, your preparation and your awareness and assessment of yourself is going to minimize that luck, but there is going to be some part of it which will obviously come into, the scheme of things on the day of the exam. So in fact, I've done a few live solving sessions as well on this channel, and there have been cases in the past where during those live solvings also, I tend to, do a set which I feel, okay, I should have probably done it later. Then the best thing that you can do once you realize this is just let go of those 15-20 minutes. I know it's difficult. Again, with practice, it might become a habit, right? That you just let go of those 15-20 minutes, because this exam is all about making the most of the time you have. I think everyone over here, if I give you adequate time, and if it is to save your life, everyone will be able to solve all the sets of LRD. It's just a function whether you do it in 120 minutes, 80 minutes, 40 minutes, or 20 minutes, right? So we have those inherent, skills to solve these sets, just that you have to make the best of your time, right? So if you feel that, okay, 15-20 minutes chalega, not a problem, at least make the most of the 20-25 minutes which are left.
Right. I think that's a very valid point that both Sunit and Shivam mentioned, that the 15-20 minutes, let's say, if at all you get stuck on a set for some reason, you realize that I have wasted that time. It's also important to not give up, right? Because a lot of times what happens is sometime in the last 5 minutes or 7 minutes, you can actually crack an entire set, right? So don't do any disservice to yourself by giving up on that 20th minute mark, saying, oh, I am not able to solve this one set. I've lost half of the time that I had, and I'll not be able to recover from this situation. Because we'll show you data at the end and you'll realize that even solving one set is going to be enough to clear the sectional cutoff that is going to be there, right? Let's move on to for now, and we'll go to the next question that we got. So this is a question from a student, and the question is, my ultimate goal is to attempt 10 questions correctly. Okay, so there's some sort of an aim that the student has set. Should I target, say, 2 sets where I do 5 questions correctly so that I reach that number? Or I do 3 sets with distributed questions, because sometimes you may have a set wherein out of 5, 3 questions are easily doable, but 2 are going to require pretty much the same or even more amount of time, right? So how do you take that call? And should you be even doing that sort of a thing? So what's your take on this, Sunit and Shiva?
I mean, the best answer to everything is it depends, right? It depends on the situation. Ideally, obviously, when you pick up a set, the idea should be to solve all 5 questions, right? Because, you're investing a good amount of time and energy in terms of understanding that particular set. So unless and until, 1 or 2 questions are very difficult and seem unsolvable, or there's some additional data around them, which again seems a bit difficult to comprehend, or maybe the set is of the kind where all questions are independent and, each of the questions requires a lot of working, and you would want to save the time to solve something which looks more solvable. Maybe that is where you can, split your questions across sets. Otherwise, ideally, when you start a set, my recommendation would be to at least have the mindset to, solve all 5 questions.
Shivam, what's
Pretty much agree with Sunit over here that if you have, cracked the entire set, you should be taking advantage of whatever questions are there under the set. Just in case if a question has a specific condition, for that, you need to restructure the entire table, and that takes a lot of time and effort. In that case, you can let go of that question. Otherwise, you should be attempting all the question under a set.
Yeah. All right, let's move ahead. We'll go to the next one. So again, this particular question that we got, I don't know where exactly the student got this data from, but the question went like this. I have observed that there are 2 easy sets out of 4 sets. Is this true in CAT? So can we predict CAT in some way? I mean,
difficult, very difficult. So again, it's also a game of perception, Prasad, because, for me, it might be all 4 sets are easy. CAT 2017, I remember I came out of the exam. I met a student and, I felt, okay, it was a solvable paper. And the student was like, so what are you talking about? It was so difficult, right? So, it depends on person to person. Maybe I might find, hard to work around, set around matrices easy because I just have a good hand at, that particular type of sets, right? Maybe you might not, or maybe 99% of you might not find it to be easy. So first of all, easy, difficult to define is a different ballgame. And secondly, to predict CAT is another challenge in itself, right? You may not even, you don't even know whether there'll be 4 sets this time, or there'll be 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 as well, or there might be just 22 individual questions, right? Anything can happen in the examination. Obviously, we prepare our mocks in such a way which basically covers a lot of eventualities, right? We go through the last few years papers and try to stick to that pattern in most of the mocks, and in some you might even see that we'll go slightly away from the pattern as well, right? That is just to prepare you guys for different eventualities that might happen on the day of the exam.
Shivam, do you want to add something?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the start of the session today, it's a highly unpredictable exam, and that is why you should be prepared to handle whatever comes your way. But having said that, I would surely add over here that CAT majority of the time will give you a good mix of easy, moderate, time consuming, lengthy, and difficult questions. So it's a mixed bag, more or less. Okay. And therefore you should not be worrying too much about 2 sets being easy out of 4 sets, but just go and follow the process. Have your ABC analysis in place, prioritize and attack. Have a stop loss just in case if you are stuck. So if you're following the process, I cannot guarantee the number of attempts that you'll be making, but I can surely guarantee that you'll be making the most of the time that you have in the section.
Right. So the process will help you to arrive at the 2 sets that on that day you find the easiest for
Exactly.
you. Right. So just sort of mixing the thing that Sunit and Shivam said, right? That you follow a process that, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the ABC. I'm going to set my criteria that, okay, this is where I stop and so on. And now I make a choice that, okay, these are the sets that I'm going to pursue because I today find these to be the 2 easiest sets out of the 4 sets that have been given. For all we know, there could be 5 sets. I saw some comment in the chat window that can we get 7, 8 sets in the paper? In 40 minutes looks highly unlikely, but again, let's wait and because anyway, the CAT registration should be announced very soon. So we'll get to know some of these things, at least if there are going to be any major changes in terms of the duration and the number of sections and so on. But till then, let's continue with what has happened in the last few years and restrict ourselves to 4 sets for the discussion today. Okay. Let's move on. So there's a question, which kind of sets will come in the actual CAT when compared to SimCATs?
Right. So as a person who does a lot of live solving around SimCATs, I would say that SimCATs are very similar to, how the CAT is, right? I mean, over my experience of, the last 7 years while I've been teaching, I've seen, lots of similarities, or, I feel that, people who give the SimCATs in a way have some sort of an advantage in terms of some familiarity with, how the exam will be, because we try to, over here have, sometimes we'll have the section to be on the easier side, sometimes it will be difficult, sometimes it will be in the middle, right? Sometimes there'll be more DI, less LR, or less DI, more LR, right? So you'll get the entire spectrum over here, right? Which in a way helps you again be ready for any kind of eventuality that comes in the exam. And as I said, in terms of difficulty level also, I feel that, these sets that you solve during the SimCAT are pretty much, similar in nature when it comes to the difficulty level in CAT. Obviously, we can't predict what sets are going to come in the CAT. So can't say ki, the sets that we put in the SimCAT, the CAT will also have same sets or sets around the same particular situations or topics. But at least in terms of the difficulty level, the depth that we try to cover, you'll have a good understanding or a good experience, which will help you obviously on the D-Day as well. So yeah, that is what my opinion would be.
I'm going to take a question from Ronit Patel from the YouTube chat. what would you rank Sim 6 LR? I found it little hard. So a lot of it is by design. Okay, so Ronit, don't worry. So what we do is when we set the papers for the SimCATs, we try to, as Shivam also mentioned, right, the way it's going to be on the CAT, you're going to have a mixture of some easy sets, some moderate sets, some lengthy sets, some difficult sets. So what we do is we ensure that we have something that people will be able to solve and something that will help people to learn something new, right? So we'll add a completely unique set that people have not seen earlier, and that will improve your content. So you have to look at any particular SimCAT that you're taking, not only from the angle of let me assess how much I know or whether I'm able to apply or not, but also from the perspective of learning new stuff, right? So when you come across a new set, any new logic, right, you have to note things down. You have to ensure that it gets inculcated in your mind, so that once you see a similar set, you'll be able to apply that logic, right? So that's how you also need to look at the SimCATs that we have to offer. Shivam, let's go to the next question. So the question from a student, I'm taking around 25-30 minutes. So from the 15-20 minutes that we discussed, now we have moved to 25-30 minutes, that I'm taking so much time to solve a single set. And of course, I'm getting all the answers correct, but it's taking a lot of time. So what is it that you will suggest this student?
I would suggest that if the student has been practicing since a long time, it should be high time now that he should start practicing in a time-bound manner. And let's say if you are today taking 25 to 30 minutes finishing a set, don't straight away target 15 minutes, because that will be really difficult. But try and aim, let's say, around 3 minutes lesser compared to what you are taking currently, or maybe 5 minutes lesser, and have a conscious effort towards reducing your time and improving your efficiency while you're practicing on a daily basis. So maybe the result will not be visible the very next day or maybe next to next day, but if you keep doing that, maybe let's say 7 days, 10 days, 15 days into it, you might be able to see certain progress in terms of the time you are saving on solving a particular set. You need to have a conscious decision, and you need to have a pressure of time at the back of your mind.
Sunit, any suggestions?
I completely agree with what Shivam has suggested to the student, right? First of all, to the one who's asked this question, I think you're doing a good job. You don't need to worry much, right? You have 3 months left for the examination. And as you keep practicing, this 25-30 will definitely go down to a 20, then a 15, then a 12, then a 10 as well, right? Depends on the quantum of practice that you do. As Shivam suggested, it just has to be in the right way, right? So now that you know you're taking this much time, try to keep a timer on and try to, get done with your set, in 20 minutes right now, if you're taking 25. Right. And as you start doing sets in 20 minutes, then you start targeting 15 and so on and so forth. Right. This is what I used to do. Although I was a good student for DILR and quants, when it came to verbal, it was a nightmare section for me when I was a student. Right. So this is what I used to do over the weekend. I just used to sit and solve 200 questions, on para jumbles on a particular weekend. Then on some other weekend, I used to do para completion, para summary. During those times, there used to be grammar and vocab as well, right? And there used to be so many question types. And every weekend, my agenda used to be that I have to master this one question type to a certain extent that, I'm able to solve questions with around 80% odd accuracy and, solving them within like 2.5 odd minutes, right? Considering verbal ability, right? So they can be solved slightly faster as well. So that is what you have to do if DILR is the section you want to focus on, or if quants is the section you have to focus on. You first have to get going with your accuracy. Once you start getting your accuracy, then you have to work on your time. It can't be the other way around. You can't do things fast first and then try to get them right.
Perfect. I think let's move on. We have a slide on the data. So just want to put it out there first of all, so that all of you can have a look at it and just keep it for your reference. You can take a screenshot of this if you want. And this is very important data, because a lot of times students are scared of the section itself. So they keep thinking that I have to do 2 sets, there are 4 sets, I have to do 3 sets and so on. But you have to know where you are right now and what is the next milestone for you, right? So somebody who is, let's say, unable to solve 2 sets right now, but you're able to solve 1 set, right? The table that you're looking at shows you that, let's say if you have 5 questions on a set and you're able to solve all of them correctly, that itself will take you to a level where you have cleared the sectional cutoff, right? And looking at the current numbers, the 15, for example, these are approximate scaled scores at the respective percentile levels that you see. you see 90 percentile is around 15 scaled score. Okay? So again, we'll not get into the normalization and how the scaling happens and everything. Let's keep that impact aside. But if I'm getting a scaled score of 15, let's assume for now, very simply, if I divide by 3, I'm looking at 5 questions, right? So if I do one set correctly, there's a possibility that I might be able to get close to 90 or even maybe more than that. But if you think of it, let's say if I add another set, right? Just think where it will take you. So currently, if you do, let's say 2 sets properly, you're looking at a 99 plus percentile. So having an aim of, let's say, solving 3 sets or 4 sets without reaching to 1 set or 2 set is something that you should not do. Okay, because then you will keep getting disappointed with your performance. So rather than that, think of it as small improvements, as Shivam was also saying that if you're taking 25-30 minutes, you cannot suddenly go to 10-15 minutes for a set, right? So look at marginal improvements. As Sunit also mentioned, you have a lot of time, practice a lot of things, and I'm sure there will be an improvement. Okay. What we'll do now is we'll jump to questions from YouTube chat. I'm going to start with a question that I saw from Yadhu. I am in my final year of undergrad and I'm not sure if I can crack CAT this year. Is there any schedule I could follow to crack it? Okay. So the first thing would be to kick aside the apprehension that you have at this point of time. Okay. There will be some fear of unknown, especially if you have started preparing right now. So what you can do is just follow a very structured approach to your prep, see how much time you're getting, because as you said, you're in the final year. So your college grades are also very important, right? So figure out what are the activities that you do, where you're spending your time, and then you can have a structured approach to your prep, devote maybe 2 to 3 hours or even more than that if possible on a daily basis, and then practice in a very very systematic manner. You have to optimize your prep. See, somebody, if, let's say, had started preparing a year back, right? Now that person has the liberty of time. You can take as much time as you want. But when you are short on time, right, it's like like an optimization problem, right? You have to now optimize your prep and just focus on the essentials that are there. Okay. I'm going to pass on a question to Sunit, and this question is, how many sets one should practice daily? Now, Sunit had already answered it, but then how do I decide that, okay, something is sufficient for me or not, right? So is it 2, is it 3, should I go 5 or 6? What is it that you will recommend?
Agreed. So Prasad, it's a mix of a lot of things, and here your other sections also come into the picture, right? Also, whether you're studying or you're doing a job or you're completely dedicated to your CAT prep, right? Because the amount of time you have also plays a significant role in coming to the number of sets, right? And let's say DILR is the section which is giving you the most number of nightmares. I think whatever time you have, you should try to devote around 50 odd % of the time to DILR practice, right? And let's say if that time is around 2 hours a day, you should be trying to solve around 3 sets on a daily basis. I'm giving you 40 minutes a set, which basically means can take around 20 to 30 minutes to just crack the set, and maybe another 10-15 minutes to just learn from it, make certain notes if you want to, right? Again, depends, right? So this could be for a student who's just started, who's facing a lot of issues, or this could be for a student who wants to improve on their DILR, but they're already at a significant level. Maybe then for them in 2 hours, they could even try solving 5 sets, right? So very, very subjective, to be very honest, right? The ideal, I mean, the only number that I would give to you objectively is try solving around 400 to 500 sets in DILR to, have a good chance at having a good percentile in the CAT.
Thanks, Sunit. So let's move to the next question. So Shivam, there's a nice question from Lalit. And the question is, why should we practice difficult and time-consuming sets, even when we know that we won't solve such sets during D-Day?
Okay, so there are 2 things. One is building your content, and second, making the most out of it during the test, right? So once you have an exposure to difficult level set, once you practice that, you definitely end up improving your content a lot. Also, you understand the question type. Okay, this is something which took a lot of time for me to solve, and that is where if you recognize similar question in the test, there is high probability that you can leave the set. But if you haven't seen the difficult set, if you haven't practiced, you will actually not know what is the difficult set, right? So in the exam duration, in the exam scenario, you might get into it and get stuck. So it's important in 2 ways. One, recognition becomes easier. Second, it helps you build your content also. So it is said multiple times that if you want to run a 100-meter race, you don't practice 100-meter, but you practice running around 405-meter at the maximum of your speed, so that running 100-meter on the day of the race becomes easy for you. So something similar is applicable in this case as well. Although you are attempting moderate and easy questions during the paper, but there is no harm in practicing difficult question outside the test. That just improves your content.
Right. So there's a question for Suneet, and this is with reference to what you said about the test day routine. So you said something about keeping yourself switched on before the test. So what is it that you do, or how to do that?
Yeah, perfect. I love that question. So there's this technique called visualization, right? I generally, at least, I practice and I try to tell my students or try to teach them also that, you should try to visualize, before you start any test as to how that test should go for you in the best of situations, and then keep adding hurdles, right? Hurdles like you took 5 to 10 minutes on a set and you're not being able to solve. What would you do in that scenario? Right? All four seem to be very difficult sets. What would you do in that scenario? Right? So keep adding those hurdles in your visualization and try to figure out your optimum response to it. If you've thought about it just before the test, high chances that when it happens, you'll also do it as well. Right? So that is what I would recommend, and maybe not do it just once, but I generally would recommend you to do it for a continuous period of 15-20 days before the test itself, right? Subah sham do bar, just like a medicine, just do it twice a day, 15 odd minutes each time. And I think it will go a long way in terms of you being efficient during the examination, right? You can't obviously learn more stuff during the examination, but whatever you know, to make the most out of it during the exam, you need to have a good hold on your strategy, right? And it is strategies these days have to be very variable basis of situations, right? So going through every possible scenario, right? And doing it just before the test, when you're sitting at your desk over there, waiting for the test to start, maybe taking out 10-15 minutes, and maybe the other time also keeping yourself motivated, thinking why this test is important for you, or which B school you want to go to, or who are the people who motivated you or who inspire you, right? All those thoughts in a way keep you generally motivated to do well in the test, which ensures that you don't switch off.
Right. Let's move to the next question. So this is from Akhilesh. So Shivam, if you can answer this one, what are the important topics that one should do for DILR?
I mean, it's very difficult to categorize DILR in terms of topic first thing, but see, simple graphs, charts is something that I have seen appearing in the exam more frequently and more regularly. So you should not be missing out on preparing certain data based charts like table, bar graph, line graph, mixed graph, pie chart, etc. So one thing is that you should be practicing different types of charts, maybe probably mixed graph if possible. Also, you should be practicing reasoning-based puzzle and data interpretation caselets, right? So this is minimum you should do. Then, of course, there are a lot of sets which will appear as a unique set and cannot be categorized fully. But these are the things you need to prepare. I can even add tournaments to these.
Okay. Let's move ahead. So there's a question from Soumya Yadav. It has been 2 to 3 months since I started preparing, but I don't know how to make notes for DILR. I think that's a crucial question because in quant, it's easy to make notes. You're writing formulae down. In verbal also, you are writing, let's say, rules of grammar, or you're writing, okay, strategies for parajumbles and so on. So how do you make, because as even Suneet mentioned, right, 300, 400 sets if you're doing, what are the notes that students should be making?
I think one important practice that students can do or should do is whenever they encounter a question or a set which imparts certain sort of enlightenment, right, or certain sort of knowledge, should definitely make a note of that set, maybe a screenshot. If you're solving online, keep those screenshots together, maybe just mark it somewhere or write it down somewhere. I used to do this a lot, not just in LRDI, but in other sections as well, whatever questions which I, struggled with while solving during mocks, or which, I felt to be very interesting, or where I could figure out another way of applying, my abilities or my formula, right? I would make a note of them, and, especially in the last week, we generally tell students to not take mocks, right? So what to do? Mocks nahi loge, practice bhi hum kam karne bol dete hain. Bachcha kare to kya kare? So this is the time where you can actually, take out time and just go through these questions, because, these are the questions which made you learn a lot of things, right? So maybe just revising them before the test might, give you a certain edge during the exam.
Let's move ahead. So there's another question from Durgesh, and Shivam, if you can shed some light on this. Any advice on organizing data on paper? So what should one observe and how to organize according to parameters given? And I never seem to get the perfect table, unlike SimCAT solutions, right? So of course, in SimCAT solutions, we try to make it very easy for students and give a very structured approach and so on. But how do you replicate that kind of a thing when you're actually taking the test?
So I think this has more to do with the LR puzzles. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the approach that I normally follow for AR-based puzzle is I quickly have a look at how many variables are there. So let's say there are 5 friends who come from different hometown, who are into different professions. So I know that, okay, 5 people are having 3 types of data with them. That is, one is their name, second is their profession, and third is their hometown. So I quickly make a 5x3 rough structure, and then I will simply I generally don't go for the tick cross method. A lot of people try implementing the tick cross method, that they vertically list down the names of the friend and horizontally they put the cities or the profession of those friends. Tick cross method works good if you are having 2 or 3 variables to deal with, but the moment you are having 4, 5, 6 variables to deal with, it literally becomes impossible to handle using tick cross method. And that is why I normally make a blank table and I keep entering the detail as I come across it. So for example, if it is given that Mr. A comes from Amritsar, then I will write A and Amritsar. So there is one pair that I'm getting. So it's very important to put the data in pair-wise manner so that we can later on fit in the missing details in the table.
Yeah, thanks, Shivam. Sunit, there are a couple of questions and those are interrelated. So I'm just going to put it as one question to you. Specifically for games and tournaments, because I saw 2 or 3 questions related to that, and people are saying I find games and tournaments difficult. So what is the approach that you would suggest to, one, prepare for games and tournaments, and 2, if let's say you get it on the paper, then how do you go about solving?
Got it. So, I mean, see, there's a slightly, I would say different kind of an answer I have to this, right? And, with the time left for the examination, maybe a bit difficult to implement, but I think can be done easily also, is for the, students should first also try to understand how these tournaments work, right? You can't expect yourself to go into an exam and, just crack it in the first go, right? So, there have been a lot of cases where, obviously in the exam, they define how a round robin format works or how a knockout tournament works. But, having that information beforehand, having some real life examples also in mind, in a way, also helps you, or, gets you slightly readier at least to, solve those kind of sets, right? So, it's always said, when you are going to do something, at least, try to love it, try to enjoy it, right? So, why not go through some past tournaments in cricket or football or whatever sport you like, just see how those tournaments turned out, how the format worked, right? That is one thing. Obviously, there can be games which you might have not heard about before, or designs of tournaments which might be new for you during the examination, right? But with this kind of base that you're setting for yourself, with the practice then that you do around these sets, which is automatically going to give you a lot of confidence, right? You have to go into the exam feeling that you can solve a games and tournament set. Only then will you be actually able to solve a games and tournaments, right? So if you have that background, even after looking at something which is relatively new to you, you can still put your mind to it. You can still keep calm and, put pen to paper, read down all the points, try to make, notes of those points so that you don't have to keep rereading those points again. As Shivam also said, right? If let's say a point says A corresponds to B, you can just in a corner of your rough working, if you can just write A arrow B or A cross B, automatically you don't need to read that point again, right? Sometimes reading takes a lot of time, takes in a lot of energy, but making those notes in a very systematic format makes it easier for you to crack the set as well, right? So my take around games and tournaments in a nutshell, hence, number one, if you can just go back and check out some tournaments, especially if you've not been a sport fan in the past, right? People who've been sports fans, I think automatically have a kind of an edge in these kind of sets. Number two, practice a lot of games and tournament sets. I think that is going to give you the confidence with which you can at least go into the exam thinking कि games and tournaments का कुछ आएगा तो मैं solve कर सकता हूँ, right? And thirdly, if you see something new during the exam, you still tend to, kind of read the points very calmly and make notes and try to get a hang of the situation and try solving the setup.
Yeah. So I'm going to take a couple of questions from the chat window, which are related to the IMS content and various things that we offer. So there's a question from Mitali. Should I redo the sets from the class exercises or do new sets? So firstly, of course, it also connects with what Sunit said some time back, that the moment you see something unique, the moment you come across any sort of enlightenment that, okay, I've never seen a set like this, right? Make notes somewhere that you can refer to at a later point of time, because you will not have the liberty of time to go through the entire questions again and again. And solving the same set maybe 2 to 3 times is not going to give you any benefits as such. If you understand it first time really well, solve a different set which has similar logic. That will still make sense rather than doing the same set again. So that's the first question that was related to the content that we provide. Secondly, there's a question from Avilasha about getting around 60-70 percentile on the DILR section. So right now, I will not really look at my percentile, okay? Because don't get obsessed with the percentile. It's always going to be a relative assessment. So that is why don't worry too much about it. I would suggest that since you said that you are able to complete 2 sets or 1.5 set and so on, look at the raw score that you're getting, right? So focus on that, focus on accuracy, focus on how many questions you're solving. So if it's better to track those things rather than thinking purely from the percentile game, right? Because see, what happens is when you go for the CAT, there's a lot of dead weight, right? Because of which your percentile naturally gets pushed up. So don't worry too much about the percentile figures that you see on the SimCAT, right? Regarding Shobhit's question related to the DILR ABC approach, so we had done a session called SimCAT Suffer a few days back, and the recording of that is available in my IMS dashboard. So ABC is essentially identifying the easy, moderate, difficult questions. So categorizing the questions, right? So A stands for Abhi Karo, B stands for Baad Mein Karo, C stands for Chhod Do, right? So it's our way of saying easy, moderate, difficult. We have explained that method with respect to DILR very well in that particular session. So you can go through it. The recording is there in my IMS dashboard. Okay. Let's take maybe a couple of questions more and then we can wrap up the discussion. So there's a question from Hugi, right? I'm scoring very poorly in DILR. I can complete the set, but I'm not able to do it in stipulated time. There's anxiety, which is ruining my mock. And I think the anxiety bit is very, very important to discuss, because a lot of times we have seen that DILR anxiety and performance also gets passed on to the next section, which is quant, because of which your entire exam might get affected. And I've had students like that where 20 minutes not able to solve anything in DILR and then suddenly gave up, right? So the question is to both Sunit and Shivam, you can add as to how do people not give up if, let's say, they encounter situations like these, that I've spent 15-20 minutes, nothing has come out of that.
So again, as I said earlier, I follow a very golden rule, that is 5-6 minutes I'm out of the set, and that way I have to give up the emotion over there that I have already spent 5-6 minutes. How can I let it go? How can I let it go? So it's very important to come out of it and leave that set there and then only, and move on to the next one, because very likely you are going to give a mix of easy, moderate, difficult. So if you have encountered a difficult set first, you are one step closer to your easier set. So better move on. Your chances of getting the easier set or the moderate set will be higher. in moving on, if you compared to if you are sticking to a same set for longer duration.
Cool. So I'll just add a few points, Prasad, over here. First of all, the mindset matters a lot, right? The situations that you told, yes, there have been students, who felt that they ruined their DILR section. In the end, they scored like a 99 percentile in DILR because the test was actually very difficult. So even with the 1.5 sets that they did, they still got a very good percentile, right? But because of that, that mindset ki I've ruined my DILR, just tend to stray apart during your quant section, right? So my take is very simple over here. See, you have to spend those 2 hours in the exam center. Whatever happens, in whatever area of the test, still at least give your best shot for the other parts, right? At least you never know how it might help you. So, that is what I would say, that, don't let any misperformance in any section misguide you during some other section. Now, coming to Cookie's problem specifically, right? That scoring very poorly in DLR and, not being able to do it in the stipulated time. Cookie, my advice to you would be, the same that I've been speaking during the entire session over here. Is with practice you'll get over there. So you just have to keep going. If you are able to solve sets, maybe not being able to do it in a set amount of time, you're already halfway through, right? You are getting things right now. Just you need to get it in a particular time frame. With practice, obviously you'll get over there. Just set a good practice strategy. Do as many sets as possible. Try to keep an eye on time, but not let it make you very anxious as well, right? So थोड़ा मिक्स मैच करके थोड़ा आगे बढ़ोगे खुद से अपने आप, थोड़ा हौसला रख के बढ़ो, अपने आप दिल्ली दूर नहीं रहेगी फिर.
So let's move on and we'll take the last few questions. So I'm going to answer some of these questions. So there's a question from Akhilesh. Should we practice doing rough work in limited space paper? There's a connected question by Shubham, that although everyone recommends doing as much paperless work as possible, I can't deal with remembering LR, the conditions that are given during the exam. So see, whatever you do, right, as Sunit mentioned, solving a lot of sets, as Shivam said, having a systematic approach while solving, and then all the SimCATs that you have that you're going to take, right? It's basically training you for what you're supposed to do on the final day. So when somebody is saying that I need to use very limited amount of paper, correct, that's fine. And when you say that I'm unable to remember all the conditions, that is common thing. But while practicing, you will improve your memory, you will improve your retention, that you're able to remember the conditions. If you're not able to do that, you'll at least know how to put these conditions in a very short amount of space that is there, right? So rather than saying that X is from a particular city, I'm just going to say X dash that city, right? So if you're conscious about the amount of rough work that you're doing, so once you're done with the test, have a look at the rough sheet. And then you start asking yourself, was writing this really required, right? And when you do a lot of that self-introspection, you will realize that over a period of time, you will get better at it. Okay, so don't take too much pressure of it at this point of time, is what I would say. Avilasha, to answer your question, IMS material is going to be definitely sufficient. You also have the AI-enabled adaptive practice now, so that once you're done with the SimCAT, you can actually launch more practice through the AI-enabled practice that is there, which will create more sets for you, right? So the material is going to be sufficient. I don't think you need to buy any books that are available in the market, okay? So with that, I think we have more or less answered all the questions that we got in the chat window and through the Google form that we had shared. I hope this session has helped you. But before we end it, some parting thoughts from Sunit and Shiva.
There are too many things to tell, Prasad. 1 or 2 points that I missed out. As just while you're speaking, there are more points coming out of me. Related to a lot of questions asked today as well, right? Where people were saying that, they spend 15-20 minutes, they're still stuck. Sometimes the reason of being stuck is misinterpreting a condition as well, right? Prepositions, you replace a preposition with some other preposition in your mind, and automatically the meaning of the condition changes, right? So a lot of times it is not because you're not able to solve it, it's because you're just not reading properly or correctly, right? So always recommended to read very properly. If you're getting stuck, try to just go back and see if you're reading the conditions right. I to say ki, sometimes what happens is if you go and read again, you will tend to read it wrongly only. So maybe just leave the set, do something else, solve some other set, come back, maybe read it again, and you might just find what you are doing right, what you are doing wrong. So, sometimes just going back and reading the question helps a lot. In DILR, obviously, it is more difficult because, there are just 4 sets. So there's not a lot of real estate to work on over here, right? And quants, obviously, being independent, 22 odd questions, and every question being independent, even if you're making a mistake, going back, reading it, sometimes is the answer to also, getting it right. But either ways, my take would be, ki guys, I think if, first of all, try getting questions right? If you're doing things right, a lot of you have said that you are being able to do things right, is that it's taking a lot of time. I think practice will get you over there. And even if, let's say, you're not getting things right, you have to practice in the correct way where you try to focus on your accuracy, right? That is very important. It's accuracy first and then speed, right? So don't try to go the other way around, which I know a lot of youngsters souls are looking for. Right? I think a lot of you came to this session thinking कि इधर मेरे को कुछ formula मिल जाएगा where I will get my speed or accuracy तो हो ही जाएगी. Right? Never try to take any shortcuts. As I said, go for accuracy first. Speed will come. It's just a byproduct.
Shivam, any last minute thoughts?
Yeah, as far as the road ahead is concerned, as Sunit already mentioned about practicing a lot, and I totally second to it. I just want to add one more thing over here, that when you are practicing, be disciplined in your approach. And if you have decided something, please stick to it. That is very, very important in being disciplined in your approach, and keep analyzing regularly and don't give up. That's all.
Okay, so we are going to wrap up the session now. So thank you, Sunit, and thank you, Shivam, for taking the time out and helping students with your insights. The recording is going to be there on YouTube. So whenever you guys have any questions, you can just leave a comment and we'll try and get back to you at the earliest. So thank you for joining the session. We hope you have found it useful, and all the best to you. Tomorrow, 7:30, we are going to have a session on quant. It's a similar Ask Us Anything session. So hope to see you guys there. Bye, everyone. Take care.